All right, welcome to our final panel with our Myst IV guests. We so appreciate you all being here. This is called Myst IV Retrospection, where we're just kind of doing an overview of everything and anything. So as we get started, would we be able to go down and each just very briefly say your name and what your role is, just because we may have people joining the stream who weren't in prior panels. We'll start with Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie Postma, and I started at Ubisoft in 2003 on Uru, and my producer said, I have to show you something, and brought me upstairs, and there's this whole world of Myst IV that I had no idea about, and we hadn't announced it yet, and I freaked out on behalf of all of you with excitement. And then after I became the Myst Worlds community manager for Uru, and worked on Myst IV with these lovely people, and it was awesome.
It was awesome. And I'm Mary DeMarle. I'm currently a senior narrative director, but when I was working 20 years ago on Myst IV, I think I was just a writer. I think that was the title. I don't even think narrative designer was a title yet in the industry back then. So I was the writer on Myst Exile 3, Myst 3 Exile, and on Myst 4.
Hello, my name is Patrick Fortier. I was the creative director on Myst IV Revelation, and I'm still in the industry today. And yeah, that's it.
Hi, I'm Minor Hansen. I was art director and senior concept artist on Myst IV for about a year, and worked on many other things ever since. Yeah.
I'm Guy Sprung. I was Achenar on Myst IV.
Thank you all very much. So as we get started, you've all talked really eloquently about your individual roles on the project. But what I'm hoping we can do now is to talk about how this goes from an idea of a game to on your shelf, something people can play. We have a fan convention. What is what is the flow of how the project goes, and how would each of your roles fit into that?
Well, the industry has changed a lot in 20 years, so I can speak about the flow now. I'm not 100% sure the flow back then. But generally, when you're starting a project, you start in the concept phase of the project, and that's when a very small core team starts discussing everything from, what is the player fantasy that we want, what is the core essence of this game going to be about, what is the gameplay, what is all this. And those discussions kind of start leading to a design. Jump in anytime, Patrick.
I think at the very beginning there's this moment of full immersion into the franchise and figuring out, like, okay, we're working on Myst. Has everybody played it? Let's replay them all individually. We spent a lot of time reading the books, playing the games, talking to one another, and what do we like, what do we don't, what do we not like as much. What are some of our ambitions that come from that? Read, up on what the fans are talking about. What did they like, didn't like? In the case of Myst Revelation, Ubisoft acquired. I think they just flat out bought Brotherbound, right? And I know that they got Prince of Persia at the same time, so they were working on that. And then we got Myst, and then it was about figuring out, like, where do we take it, what's been done, and then we looked at Exile, that had been the previous one, and we liked a lot of the bubble technology in it, and we wanted to see if we could bring that to the next level. I mean, in our hearts, I think we would have wanted to do what I've seen now that just came out with Riven, in real time, and like 20 years ago, we would have wanted to do that. Even for Myst Revelation, by the way, like we looked into having like video transitions from node to node, but it was just too costly in terms of size, and just the rendering was crazy. But like it became pretty clear early on that the main thing that we wanted was, like, how do we go beyond, because it's you play Myst and there's these fully fledged worlds, and with the music and the characters and the live action characters. It makes a difference in terms of your connection with the characters you encounter. And it was like, we want to be in these worlds, we want to bring them to life even more. So how can we bring Myst to life? And then the rest of the intentions kind of stem from there. And as Mary was saying, like with like the core team, we kind of figure out like, okay, if this is the technology we're going to use, okay, then what are the limitations, what comes with that, and then you start ironing out the storyline and characters. And maybe one of the observations that we had from Exile was we felt maybe it didn't. It could have a bit more impact on in terms of resonance, in terms of the on that world and on these characters. So we wanted to do something where we would go back and maybe revisit the chapter of the original Myst and see if is there something that we can bring there, some resolution, and delve into those and see how those events affected those characters and where are they now. And we also, when we were making the game, I felt like a little bit like we were like the last of the Mohicans, because you were talking before about there were actually a lot of live action games in the 90s and not very good ones, because they didn't cater to gameplay very well. And I could tell, and already like Uru was being developed and it was shifting towards 3D, so I could tell like this was like one of the last times we were getting like live action in a game. And we wanted to make the most of that and really elevate it to maybe what the technology could bring, but also have that, seeing that it was the last time we were going to do that. It was and seeing Rand as Atreus, and it was like, could we close that loop and close that chapter with the brothers originally? And then there's a lot of other stuff that happens, and then eventually
a lot of other stuff.
But at the very beginning, it starts a little bit like that.
After they make the game and after it's hopefully tested well and comes out and you have a gold master.
But I want to just ask the really most important question: who and when decided to kill Achenar off?
Terrible decision. Terrible.
No, writers love killing characters. Writers love killing characters.
But after all of that, and we were in a unique position on Myst IV being done at UB because we didn't just have Ubisoft, to work with, but we had to work with Ubisoft France as well. And Ubisoft France, I must say, absolutely adored Myst IV. Like the comparison of North American swag and box art and everything else compared to the European. Does anybody have any of the European Myst IV stuff in your collection? Like, I know you do. I do.
I do, because you sent it to me.
Oh, okay. You're well. It was like, we got a few fun things, and then we went to, we just opened this closet, and there's all this stuff like, do you have the pencil? Do you have one of the 3 or 4 shirts? Do you have the they had a deck of cards. They had all this stuff, and yeah, there you go. And they loved, but just in general, like marketing is a whole other animal, and you never know what's going to work. You never know what's going to take off. So you just kind of put it out there and hope for the best. And we know that our core audience, many of whom are in this room, are going to get it, but you never know what's going to take off and be beloved by fans worldwide. So anyway, so that was a huge part. But I just want to say, because I just heard you talking about your experience acting, and because you're asking about the product going from kind of concept to on the shelf, can we show some of the pictures? So Stéphane Turgeon has sent some pictures for us.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and so this is Stéphane up in the top right, and he was the sculptor making the props. They were just talking about the Lifestone. Achenar, if you want to talk about the Lifestone and the fact that, this... I don't know. I thought you'd be excited to see this prop again. I don't want to make this a trigger for you, but so yeah, as you can see, it starts as a concept and then it moves into him sculpting it, and the bottom center is obviously the finished prop, and there you have our friend Guy working with the prop itself in front of the green screen. Yeah, go ahead, Kate. So this is Geneviève, who most of you have probably seen her in previous Mysterium. She was in 2020 and 21 virtually with us. And she couldn't be here today, but she sends you all her love. And that's her with Stefan. Go ahead, Kate. Kate, can you do the next one? That's okay. So I want to ask you, who is on the left there? Do you recognize him?
Some guy doesn't like Stefan.
Yeah.
I do, but I can't think of the name. I can't either.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
one of the things that you have to remember from my perspective, Myst
It's a long time, I know.
is that I came here from San Diego to work. I was supposed to work largely from my home in San Diego at
Right.
the time, but they would put me up here. I spoke no French.
Oh, sure. And they were all
and
French.
they're all French.
Yeah.
So coming into a team where everybody's speaking French,
Yeah.
you kind of, and I work for many years after that. I worked at IDOS for many years, and they're all French too. But at IDOS, I started to understand the French a bit more.
Okay.
So I forgot so much. I was out of so much because I wasn't.
But also, as if any of you want to make a replica of this prop, you can see he's using drywall compound, if that helps you out for... Go ahead, Kate. Go ahead.
I just
I know. I love the sign, too. It's great. Go ahead,
I
Kate.
just want to add that
Oh.
Stefan is a close friend of mine, and I still meet with him every once in a while. He's still there.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
still at Ubisoft. He's a lifer.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
he's just an extraordinary artist as well. So, very, very nice person.
And here we have our friend, Guy, and you were just talking about a scene with her that you were doing. Yeah. And holding yet another prop. Go ahead. Green everywhere with one prop. Is this bringing back fond memories for you? You're quite stylish. Almost as stylish as Parker, not quite. Do you have anything you want to talk about now that you're seeing it again?
No, I changed my mind. I think we'll keep the stone. Maybe just add a bit of weight to it, so it you have to actually lift it for real.
Yeah, yeah. Is that helpful? Oh, there we go. Are you talking to me?
Strong
no, it's
guy.
good. It's good.
I have a question for you. Did you find after being in front of a green screen for hours that everything would be pink afterwards?
Not that I can remember. Maybe everything is just pink for me naturally.
Yeah. No, I've been on green screen sets quite a bit, and if you're in front of that green, it's such a phosphorescent, bright green that you get an after image in your eyes. That your eyes adjust to the color afterwards, and everything looks pink. And I was working with on Stay, and Ewan McGregor had just come off of working on Star Wars. And he was on there, and every time that we had to do a shot with him on the green screen, he would just get so depressed. It was like, ugh. So yeah, I don't envy you being in front of a green screen.
One more? Oh, yeah, there we go. Or you'll screw up everything.
Maybe about 2 inches to the left.
Yeah, I think it's to the right.
Yeah.
I have a technical question actually. Was it shot in HD or was it NTSC? Was it regular standard video? Because I think that's probably one of the reasons why there wasn't very much video in it, because if it was shot in HD, they could only put in like a few seconds here and there.
I don't remember, and that's one of the things I was talking with Mary coming here. Is the live action part. I wasn't very involved in it, and we had a director, and Mary was there, but I don't even remember like who was part of the casting, and it baffles my mind that Mary or even myself were not part of that process. And I keep remembering, I was like, oh, it's just something that was like, okay, it's going to be handled. There's a lot to handle. And I just let it go. But then, and then hearing like your story about like the game not being introduced to you in the background of the characters. And I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah, that's hard to hear.
Yeah, that is very hard to hear because nowadays, with like all the projects I've worked on since, I usually create this entire story Bible and we make sure that the actors get it and we are there for them to explain it. So, but you're right, because the memory back then was we weren't really a huge part of the process. I remember vaguely seeing some of the auditions. So I know you did an audition because I think I saw it, but I think I saw it when they said, here's Aknar. This is who we're using. And then I remember the director was a movie director, a French-Canadian movie director, and he'd never worked in games before. And so I remember being on set because I was on set, and I remember he was directing, and he's like, couldn't get used to the idea that no, we don't go in for close-ups. That we and I remember at one point he was struggling with it, and I remember saying to him at one point, going, "Okay, you're not directing a movie, you're directing a play." And when he understood that, he came in the next day and it was like, okay, I think I know how to direct this now, because he was like, well, what do you mean we can't go in for a close-up? It's like, no, we're doing the whole body. We're doing the whole stage. So.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Kate. I have a question for each person just because I wanted to make sure I forced everyone to talk. So, Katie, you started out as a Myst fan and ended up as a community manager. What was that transition like?
Thrilling and scary. Like many of you here, I went to Cyan in 2003 to that Mysterium. That was our second Mysterium that we went to. And while I was there, I was already a volunteer moderator on mystcommunity.com and having a blast doing that. I was a stay-home mom with 2 kids. Before that, I had been a medical administrator, like you do before you get into video games. And so then while I was at Cyan, I went a couple of days early. And so I was there the day before Mysterium, and I was just talking to Bill and Eric, and they were showing me some sneaky things. And I said, if you ever need help with the community, just let me know. I'm home all day, and I'm online all day. And they did this little look. They exchanged a little look, and I thought, oh, they think I'm a troll and they hate my guts. But then a couple of weeks later, someone from Ubisoft, Sebastian Puel, called me from Ubisoft Montreal and said, would you like to come and interview, because we have a community manager position open. And I was like, I was very excited. So I went up to Montreal and interviewed, and I got the position on Uru. And the greatest thing I ever did in my life was decide to, with Rick's blessing, do that as a career move. But the saddest thing I ever did was I had to craft the cancellation announcement for Uru online. Yeah, hi, I've been there 4 months, and I'm gonna, do this now. So, but then the good news was that we at least had Myst IV to look forward to, and we also had the Uru solo to look forward to. I mean, it was small consolation, but there was consolation. I've been working in video games ever since now for 21 years, I guess, and it's still the greatest. I mean, I'm here. It's still the greatest community I've ever worked for, ever, by far. But thank you for asking.
Thank you. So I'll go to Mary next. So this was your second foray into the Myst series. Was there anything different in your approach working on a second title versus when you started out with Exile?
I think a big part of it was struggling with the French language, but also it was the team was definitely bigger, and I think especially with Patrick as the creative director, we kind of did approach it in a much more thoughtful way at first. I mean, when design intentions, things like that. I do remember the key words for the various worlds. Like, we would have brainstorm sessions and we would sit there and say, what are the key words for these different things? So I think it was largely that. And I think it was also the sense that being my second project and being, first of all, my second project with Myst, but also my second gaming experience, knowing that we could go a lot farther and a lot deeper with the story and building something that was more complex than before, that was a big part of what was different.
Thank you, Mary. Patrick, not to put you on the spot, but as creative director, what was it like to have a leadership role in this team?
It was, even the title of creative director was something new at Ubisoft back then, and it was something new for the team and for myself. I was like growing into it, and I look back now at some of the things, and obviously I would, I have more experience. I would know what to do a little bit better, but we had a pretty clear vision from the start, and we had a pretty collegiate approach, I think, to crafting, the story that was going to be, it's the foundation of everything else, and then, the nose and the shoulder, like what are we trying to tell, and what are we trying to show in the world, and then what are the puzzles trying to accomplish in terms of that. Somebody mentioned George, who was there at the beginning, and he was a really crucial person too, because he brought like all the passion and all the knowledge of Myst, and he was a really key person. I think he was maybe cast a little bit wrong, maybe in terms of what was expected of him and how to drive the project, as opposed to how to help make it better. And but so he was there. Catherine Raw was the original producer, and I'd worked with her in the past, and she made some key decisions as well. Like when before Minarch joined, like we did our first test of Tumana, and because it was to test like the bubble technology. I don't remember what we. I don't remember the technical name, but it was the first Tumana, and it was all sorts of wrong. There was nothing right about it, and it was claustrophobic. It felt like a warehouse of sort. It was not good, and it was the whole. It was like, we can't be headed down this direction and call ourselves the next Myst, and sure enough, she turned things around, and we hired the right people and got the right look, and then once Tumana was nailed, I think it laid the path forward to like what the other ages had to look like, and then everything started going well after that, and we had a lot of, and she hired Pascal Blanchet, who she knew that like we this was the kind of project that needed that kind of art person that was really like had some credentials, and is a great guy, very creative guy. So a lot of good hires, and then when she left, Genevieve came in, and she followed through really well. She managed to figure out how to. This is one of the things when I say, like, looking back as a creative director, I wish I'd spent more time bonding the team, and I did spend some time with like the core people, but there's a lot of other people that I should have spent more time with, should have been closer with. But traditionally, when you ship a game, it's like going to war, and you really feel like war buddies when you come out of it, and that's why there's so much value in keeping the team together and working again with the same people, and then understanding how people work and what their temperament is, and when they say this, what did they actually mean. That they're okay, they seem like they're against that, but they're not. It's okay, there's probably just one aspect that needs to change, and all of that communication becomes a lot quicker and better. But we had some great people that have moved on to do some great things. So, but I liked the strength of the original vision that we laid out and how we carried through it. And maybe one of the biggest compliments I had from it was when Catherine Raw left the project because she was pregnant. She had her baby. And when she didn't see the project to the end, and when she came in at the end, she had her eyes were really big, and she's like, it's exactly what we had set out to do, you know. I can see everything that we had written out and presented at Ubisoft, and that meant a lot to me.
Thank you. Mynheer, you've spoken of your career, and a lot of it is, of course, in TV and film. What brought you to this game? How did you get involved?
I was between projects. I was looking for it was a brief period. I'd finished working on at this studio called Ice Storm Studios, where I was working mostly as a visual effects designer. I worked in visual effects quite a bit, actually. I kind of jumped back and forth. So I was looking for the next project. I had a couple of small storyboard projects that were going on at the time. And I saw that there was an opening there. I honestly don't remember how I got the call or how I found the project. All I know is I knew there was a job at Ubisoft. There was an opening for an art director, and I thought, you know, I don't have an art director credentials, but I think I'll give it a shot. And I went with my portfolio, and it was like the interview went really well. And so I thought, am I in on this? This is unbelievable. I remember leaving feeling really good about it and taking myself out for a drink. and thought, yes, you know, this is great. And sure enough, I got the call the next day, and they said, okay, can you start on Monday? And I said, absolutely, 100%. So yeah, that's how I got it.
Thank you. And then, of course, Guy, you've talked about the challenges of this role and the filming, and it does sound very challenging, but Akinar and the other characters in this game are characters that people have said they connect with a lot. And I'm wondering where you think that connection comes from and what you did to inspire that.
Oh, boy. I honestly don't know. I just want to say, while I'm thinking how to answer that, it's totally fascinating, especially I'm sitting here at the edge of the table, right? But to, I really feel like, you know, I was just like on top of the tip of the iceberg, and down below there was this huge thing going on, and I'm going, wow. All that thing that, of course, I had no idea about, right? You just go in there, you do your job, and this whole, I mean, you have a sense because of the quality of, you know, you get to look at the TV screens and monitors and so on. You have a sense that there's been a huge army at work here preparing this, but you don't have any idea of the details and the decisions and the, you know, some of the beautiful early sketches that you showed us there before. Anyway. So I have no idea. I think, yeah, I think regardless of what I said about how tough it was, I think there clearly was a connection with the part, and I think if I'm connected to the part, then that helps others getting connected to it as well. So yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you all very much. I think we'll go to audience questions now. If we run out, I have some more things I can ask, but I know people are just itching to ask you their questions.
I don't think we're going to run out. All right. First, I'll take one. All right. Yeah. Thomas, you were first.
Hi, I'm Kalamis. I have a large collection of Myst memorabilia, so I'm interested in the ultimate fate of some props from the games. So I'm curious what happened to the physical prop of Yisha's memory necklace.
That I don't know. I do not know.
I can ask Genevieve for you because she might know where a lot of stuff has gone. She might have given some stuff to Cyan, but if it's not there, and if it's not in the vault, I can see if she remembers.
Yeah, I don't know what happens to all this because you were talking about the maquette, even like and I remember that walking by that like for so long and seeing it and seeing your art like bloomed up like way bigger and on the walls and everything, and then eventually the project ships and another project starts and stuff slowly disappears and then it's gone forever. And then some people maybe have hidden treasures in their basements, but a lot of stuff just disappears.
I may possibly, but you didn't hear it here. Know a writer who has Yisha's whistle, but I don't know how she got it, and I can't verify that she actually does have it on her bookshelf at home.
No, I think it's good that you have it. Like, this is important stuff that's preserved. So I'm glad to see it.
I didn't say I have it.
Sorry. I think it's good that your friend has it.
Okay, this one is from online. This is Jafras. Does more behind-the-scenes footage still exist? The making of was too short, especially footage of outtakes with Akinar, Cirrus, and Yisha.
Again, I don't know about
Yeah, it's
about
another
the
question for
outtakes.
Jenny.
I know there was a lot of. I remember when we got the footage back and we had to integrate it in the game. Somebody had to go back and change something frame by frame to put it back because there was a screw up in the yeah. So somebody spent months doing that, and they just managed to, and they had to do it like frame by frame and go back and like do a little. So maybe that person has some of the, but I
They
don't
had a
know about
bonfire.
the other stuff. I remember I do remember that at the Mysterium for Toronto. I brought some stuff, and I filmed stuff with the team. I don't know what happened there, and then I tried making a joke on you, and I scared you a lot. I think because you were like, okay, don't go in there like making them think like this is Ubisoft corporate video like stuff, and I was like, I have this video to show you from Ubisoft, and you're like, no, and I could see you like shrinking, melting, and and it was just basically like me going around the where we were working and just people saying hi, and I was just I just introduced it in a way to scare you. But I don't know where that footage is, but I'd be curious to see that someday. Like I don't know if you must, I don't know, it must be somewhere. Maybe.
I think, well, maybe Graham Williams or somebody, but I just remember, I mean, I had only been doing it a year, and I remember I got handed a list of things we were allowed to talk about and that we could not mention. Like, do not bring these things up. And I was so scared that, because you can all say what you want. Now, if it were this year, I'd be like, say whatever you want. Like, honestly, I would.
I knew that. That's why I introduced it that way.
No, I was glad you made that decision. But no, we can hunt some stuff down. We'll start taking a look around for stuff. We'll start a chainmail or something. Oh, where are they now? Group on Facebook or something.
All right, I was going to take another question from the room, but that's a good segue into another question from online. This is Lana. Speaking of things you couldn't talk about, were there any directions you wanted to take the narrative of Myst IV that received pushback within Ubisoft or Cyan or elsewhere? Any narrative beats that still stick with you emotionally today or that you feel haven't aged well?
Oh, God. I mean, this morning I was just thinking about how my writing has so much improved over the last couple of years. So I'm sure there's stuff that I'm like, oh, did I do that? I don't know. I will tell a funny story about how we were developing the story. I can't quite remember. I was pushing it in one direction. I think it involved music, and the crystals were going to be music, and da-da-da. And we were doing this, and then Patrick was like, okay, Mary, you're going to go back to Montreal for 2 weeks now, and just have a good time, relax, don't think about this place at all, and just really just let everything go, and we'll see you in 2 weeks, but don't think about anything, And when I came back, and I was like, okay, that was kind of weird. And when I came back, he's like, so here's what we're gonna do with the story. And I think the original idea, the crystals and music, that was all out, and and stuff, and I can't exactly remember how you changed it, but I remember being really angry at the time, but then gradually working with the idea and realizing it's actually better and it's going in a better direction, and then embracing it. So, but for the life of me, I can't remember what the original story was.
And I can't remember like for the life of me, I can't remember why we were working on the story if you weren't there, but I don't know, something like there's a lot of organic stuff that happens on projects, and then it's just timing sometimes, but I don't know, like for sure on a game like this, like figuring out the story and then the characters, the motivation of the characters, what we're really trying to, because that is conveyed through every other asset, and that's probably like the single most thing that I that clicked for me in terms of game development on Myst, was figuring out that everything is there to tell a story. You know, like everything right now. You know, if we just picked up and left, and somebody came in the room and they'd see, well, there's microphones there, there's glasses of water. You know, that's telling a story of like something was going on. You know, and then every asset, every animation, every written thing, every nook and cranny is an opportunity to further that story. So that was really important, like at the beginning, like figuring that out, because it was going to have such an impact on, you know, what we wanted with the art and the animation and the you know, we've talked a lot about the art, but the music is a, you know, maybe like 50% of the game as well, and a lot of time spent with Jack. And back in those days, I was near the end of production of Revelation. I was also working on Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. So I would do like 9 to 5 on Splinter Cell, have dinner, and then I'd do like until midnight or 1 o'clock, you know, on Myst. And then that turned out pretty good, because with Jack, with the because of the time difference, you know, I'd get his stuff and I'd be able to give him some feedbacks and talk to him. But yeah, so a lot of stuff is just kind of happens, and you figure it out and you work around it.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm sure that one of the reasons the story changed in those 2 weeks is because one of the things about stories in games is there's always this push, pull, and fight between the gameplay and the story. And that's one of the things I've learned over the years, is how to much more embrace the gameplay aspect and stuff. So it was probably something like, your story's really cool, but it's very intellectual, it's easy to read, but there's no way we can play it. And so when I came back, the gameplay god had basically said, now this is something that's a bit more understandable. Can we make that work?
Does anybody know in Ubisoft, or you know, that question about upgrading the technology of Myst IV? Is anybody actually in Ubisoft thinking about a remake? I mean, I was involved in the remake of Prince of Persia, but just curious.
I just, you know, seeing what I saw from Riven, I was like, that would be so amazing.
It would
if
be,
they did that.
yeah, if anybody did, it would be Cyan,
Yeah.
because the rights have all reverted back to Cyan now. Yeah, they all went back a few years ago. Yep. Yeah.
Maybe
Which was a really good thing, actually.
start a petition for them to. I'd love to see their take on our story and like what they.
So
would
what
do
I'm
to
hearing
it
is
and
you're
what-
going to start a petition. See, I've learned.
I'm not
I've learned
starting
a few
anything,
things.
but I'll be the first in line to buy it if they do the same kind of full 3D treatment that they did, and that would be great to see. And if they,
I mean, Exile's next, and then
Yeah.
Revelation, and then
Yeah.
End of Ages, right?
that would be cool.
And Akinar is in a cave, and he rolls the boulder open, and he comes back alive. Yeah.
All right, from the room.
My name's Twitch, no relation. So Ubisoft was and still is one of the biggest gaming companies on the planet. How is working for a huge team with all these resources and tons of talent compared to maybe some of the smaller teams you've been in that maybe had less resources but might have been a little bit more flexible?
What's the smallest team you've worked for?
Huh?
What's the smallest team you've worked for?
Um,
Like totally from top to bottom.
Well, for me, I think Exile was probably the smallest team, because I think that was like, were we like 40 people doing that game?
Yeah,
I
I've
think?
worked for teams of fewer than 10. So
Yeah.
they're completely different. you can't do everything you want with a tiny team, but you can do anything you want with a tiny team.
Yeah, in a tiny team, sorry, go.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, in a tiny team, people wear multiple hats, and but you run into all the late nights and because every game I've ever worked on, the people making the game are very passionate, very creative, very passionate people, and so they dedicate themselves to it and they work really, really hard. But then you run up against the resources problem. And big teams, you have a lot of people who you can now do it. You have more resources, but for some of the people within the team, there's less say, and a lot of times working on a big team, you're struggling. I'm usually in one of the core lead positions, and then you're struggling because you don't want everybody to feel like they're just factory workers, and that's one of the big issues.
And it's harder to pivot.
Yes,
Big teams,
much harder.
It's nice because you have a lawyer on call, so you can check everything right away.
I think
yeah.
with Revelation, in terms of the kind of technology that it was a little bit different than some of the other projects at Ubisoft, where the team was a little bit leaner. We couldn't really have a whole bunch of other people doing stuff, because there's still that limitation of rendering the nodes and like how much. But on other kinds of projects, certainly that's one of the luxuries at Ubisoft is you can throw people at a problem, even if the raise of efficiency is low. Maybe you get like 10, you throw 75 people at a problem and suddenly in production and boom, and then that's going to yield maybe 5%, 10%, input, but they have the people. They're just waiting there. They're on the bench there. So that's something that that's the luxury that you don't necessarily have on other projects, and you have to figure out other more creative solutions. Without you don't want to always cutting is not always like the only solution to everything. You got to figure out how to do stuff. But so for sure that's not a problem. It's nearly expected, like they know that when you hit a certain moment in production, it's like, okay, here's 150 people for you. And it's like the size of an actual team doing other
money.
project. Yeah.
Here's all the money.
Yeah.
But my memory of the team was that it was relatively small.
Yeah.
It was a small,
Comparatively small
it
inside
was
Ubisoft. Yeah.
inside Ubisoft.
It was,
By the time I left, I remember, there was, I think, a total of 350 people working at Ubisoft at the time. Now there's well over 2,000.
Yeah.
And I came back a few years later to work for 3 months on Splinter Cell Conviction. I was part of an emergency team because they decided they needed all their best people to work on the E3 demo. And then suddenly they had no seniors working on their project. So they hired a whole bunch of seniors for 3 months to work on that. Very efficient. Anyway, there were 250 people on that team. Yeah. And it was a bit of a shock for me to come in and see, holy cow, look at all these people. Then I ended up working on Batman, Arkham Origins, and there was about 150 to 200 people. And yes, it's exactly that. The difference is you don't have as much, you're compartmentalized a lot more because you're not part of you're not sitting around the table with the team.
No.
You're in the department, and that makes a big difference.
I think Uru had a bigger team than Myst IV did. Inside, not including Cyan, just inside Ubisoft, I think the Uru team was bigger because I remember there being about 9 or 10 on the architecture side, and then there was, the 5 or 6 of us in production. Then you had the whole QA room. So I think we were about, I don't know how many you were, but I think we were at least 40. I want to say 35 or 40 on Uru.
I think our team grew bigger than that, but at some point it wasn't one of the big teams that
Right.
It's funny just talking about that. Like has nothing to do with that, but it just brought me back in those days. And I remember when we started out, the first models that we were making, that the team they figured like we're working on Myst, so it's like the highest quality stuff, and they didn't consider it like it's pre-rendered. So we put all the polys that we can, and it was too big. It couldn't be rendered, and they were modeling the screws underneath inside the table, like all the stuff that you would never see. They were modeling every single thing, and they're like, that was the the mindset that they had, and then we had to scale back a little bit from that because it was too crazy. But like that's how people were going at it. Like they really wanted to push the envelope.
To honor.
Yeah, for
honor
sure.
the
Yeah,
IP,
to be worthy. Yeah.
It's a little intimidating at the moment. I've done a number of voiceovers more recently for various projects, and you have to go to the top floor of this big red brick building, and the sound studio is right at the back, and so you're going through this. It's like some alien civilization. Everybody's sitting at their monitors silently with headphones on, and they're all moving away or doing something weird. But there's row after row after row of all these people working on these monitors, and you got to go all the way through that right to the back to the sound studio. I didn't realize that Myst 4 was a small team because I like big teams because, as I said once, I lived for 20 years in the same block as Ubisoft, and so ended up having lunch often in the same places as many members of the staff. So there was a Portuguese chicken place right opposite, and I would go in for lunch just sort of by accident, and the whole team would be there, and they would go, "Hey, it's Akanar!" So I like the big team, yeah.
Hi, I'm Thomas, and I'd just like to know how you decided on the title for Myst 4.
I think that was a whole other brainstorm process, similar to what you were describing in the previous panel. Like we got into a room with a brainstorm expert at the time who had been hired at Ubisoft. He taught everybody a lot, how to run these brainstorms, and we just go with just words and ideas about like the key things that we're trying to tell about the story, and then it's just a day-long process, and then things get whittled down, and then people start voting on stuff and putting little post-its, and the whole room is filled with post-its, and then eventually there's less and less and less, and then eventually there's like just a few candidates, and then we vote on it, and then I think it gets sent like to marketing, and then marketing around the different territories, they get their say on it also, if they think is it going to translate well, or do they feel it resonates well in the different territories, and then eventually it gets approved, and it's like that's it, that's the title, and then you got to start working on like what's the packaging going to look like and things like that.
That's what it was like back then. Now I mean, I don't even get involved in the title discussions for games now, because I know that no matter what the crew is thinking about, the production staff, we have our favorites, but then the marketing gets it, and the marketing does their whole big thing and everything, and they always come back, and I've given up on titles because
it's true. Nowadays, maybe the development team wouldn't even
it's not
have
a hill
anything
to die
do
on,
with
for
it.
sure. No, you have to. You can make your suggestions, and you can do your write down your reasons why, and then marketing's just going to change it. I think at the time though, it was like that two brother conflict, and we liked the idea that it was biblical sounding was part of it, plus revelations, like revealing what's happening to the family. Like it just was a good name and fit.
Yeah, and
for
it's not too
several
long,
reasons.
and it's easy to remember.
Yeah, and because we knew we didn't want to do a different name like Riven did, because you had done Myst 3 Exile, and we obviously wanted Myst in the title for marketing purposes, for brand recognition. It's a lot of boring marketing speak, but yeah, I do remember that. Yeah. It was good for a lot of different reasons. It fit really well.
This is another question from online. I kind of liked this one. It was actually asked in the last panel, but I moved it to this one because I thought it would be better to involve more people with it. We touched on this with the bad guy with the heart of gold and the Akenar's redemption, but who decided that Akenar would turn good at the end? How did that decision come to be? Sorry, this was by Kaltseda.
I'll let you feel it.
I don't want to take credit for it, but it might have been me. It might have been me, which is kind of funny because, like, when I viewed the two characters, I always think of Cirrus as more intellectual, and I actually like intellectual villains. So I felt like we had to keep maybe the villain, the really intellectual one, rather than having the heart. And whereas Akinar was in all the Myst stories that I'd seen, he'd always come across as somebody who was potentially a little less of in his head. And so therefore to me that is somebody maybe at the time, I don't think this anymore, but at the time, that tends to lead more towards someone who's emotional and who will eventually show the positive side through the emotions. So that may have been me.
Yeah, and I think we wanted something that was going to be dramatic and have some finality to it and some closure, and so it was going to be like, how did they redeem? Did they not redeem? And then as we started exploring the characters, it started making more sense, like who would have gone down what path and where they ended up to. Like I think maybe Akinar's age maybe was more conducive to his redemption than Sirius had it pretty tough, like, so
no animals,
that
no
might not have
food.
helped. So those kinds of concerns come in, and then it starts coming out like, okay, now how do we make it dramatic? And then, okay, well, maybe Yisha, and then some jealousy there, and then the ultimate revenge, and it was very, it's pretty twisted what Sirius was trying to do, and then that sacrificial gesture is there's more grandeur to it if it's the ultimate sacrifice, than just stopping it, preventing it from happening. So I think that's probably what led us down that direction.
Do you remember when we found out that we were going to be the only Myst game that was rated T instead of E?
No, I don't remember that.
Because
Oh.
because there was a minor in peril. And I remember when that came in, and we were like, well, we have to rewrite the whole story now. It was really last days, we're like right before launch, and we got this, and we fought it, but no, minor in peril counts as T instead of E. So we're the only Myst game that's not rated E. Congratulations.
I forgot that.
All right, one from the room. All right, thank you. Somebody who hasn't asked anything yet.
Hi. So my name is Olivier, and I just wanted to ask a question about Myst IV being an FMV game, because I think it was mentioned a little bit in the beginning that it was kind of a Last of the Mohicans kind of thing. Because it's kind of a style of game using live action that was already really more than on its way out, I think, by the time the game released. And as someone who played it recently for the first time, I actually thought that it aged much better than I would have thought, because when you approach that kind of game today and you don't have any nostalgia for it, usually you kind of have to approach it as a historical object. And I thought actually that the interface is the real obstacle, but visually and in the whole feel, it really works out. So I was wondering, was there ever any question? Was it ever really in question that you were going to do it in that way? Or how did you feel about it? And were there any discussions or any
I
any
don't
questions
think
about it?
we did have any discussions. It was just so much a part of Myst.
I
But
think,
I'm not sure.
No, but we knew that, like Katie was saying, like Uru was being developed downstairs, and that was going to be their big feature, the transitioning into real-time 3D. So we didn't want to go down that route, and we didn't have the technology. There was no engine at the time to do that and have the quality of the rendering. And I think that was the mindset too. Like maybe we're Ubisoft, we're the new guys, doing this. So let's do a more traditional Myst and bring up, like push that existing technology to the limit of what it could do, and then pass the baton to like Cyan, going back and reintroducing everything in 3D and doing that. So I think that was the mindset at the time, to not use the same strategy for both games.
And I don't know if you know the history, but Myst V was kind of pulled together quickly for a couple of reasons. One, I think Cyan wanted to close the book on Myst itself. They wanted to keep the Dunnyverse open, obviously, but Myst itself. And then, but also that they needed something to help, offset costs that had been accrued during Uru. And so so for that reason, and they repurposed some stuff that they had been working on already, either for Uru or other things. So, but there's not a lot. Is there any live? I don't think there's any live action in Myst 5. Yeah, but okay. Yes, sure. Anyway, so yeah. So we really were the last one. Yeah.
So we're running out of time. Unfortunately, this has been really lovely. I'd like to close with one last question, which is, does anybody have a favorite memory from Myst 4, the creation of the game, that you'd like to share?
No, I hate those kind of favorite questions.
This is gonna sound pretty sappy, but like
I think you're going to say what I want to.
one of my favorite memories was actually the Toronto Mysterium
Me too.
and meeting the fans
too.
and really getting a full feeling welcome and accepted. Like, okay, like what you're doing and we're looking forward to it and it's worthy and just feeding off of the excitement too, because I think we brought a few nodes at the time. We brought a build of the game and we showed like some stuff and people were like really excited about it, and that was really, really good energy that we needed to finish the game. We were starting to be like no, it hadn't come out. No.
And I would agree with Patrick, but for me also signing the contract.
I think maybe the other thing was just like once we finished the game, like I don't know, I guess we must all have been mentioning this throughout this panel, but like you get compartmentalized. You work in your own little section, and you don't, you're putting bolts on the plane, and you don't see the full thing, and people question like, why are we spending animation time on trees, and why are we wasting time on tapping things, and why are we doing this, why are we doing that? And eventually when the game came out and people who have been working on it who have not had time to play it actually start playing it, and now things start making sense, and then they hear feedback from other friends and families and other people playing it, and they start reading reviews and they start appreciating it, and they come back to you and they're like, oh, like I understand now like what we were trying to do, and thanks for being part of that. And that's really gratifying, to see like, okay, well it was hard and we fought and bickered and then we sweated through it, but ultimately there's something worthy, and the proof of that is being here right now, 20 years later, and we're still talking about it. And I'm not, I don't have panels about all the games I worked on like 20 years ago. So, that's probably the top thing for me.
I have one memory that I have is do you remember Mike Yeoman? He was working on that briefly. He did the Joyride at the beginning, and up to that point I hadn't seen much 3D stuff that was being done for the game, and I just remember there was a nice camaraderie among the artists, and the illustrators for this. And I just remember we were around the screen looking at this thing and watching it moving through there, and I just remember getting this thrill. It's like, we designed this and it's working, and there was just this really good feeling of how good it looked and how exciting it was that this was going to, it was that moment where it hits you. This is going to be a real game, Yeah. And so that was a really good feeling. I really enjoyed that.
I have a really quick memory, which is when I got there, Pascal Blanchet said, "Oh, you're Katie," and I'm like, "How do you know my name?" He's like, "Because I read the forums." And I'm like, "Oh, you do?" And then he's like, "Oh yeah, we all do." And I was like, "Oh, what?" So I mean, the team, before they even knew Myst 4, before any of you knew Myst 4 existed, these people were reading what you were saying about all the Mysts and all the potential Myst 4s that could be out there. But I want to say, not just about the Myst games, but any games, when you're talking about them, whether it's Twitter or Discord or the forums, the devs are reading, even though we tell them not to read the comments. Otherwise, I'd be out of a job. But they do read and digest everything. So if you say mean things, or if even if you're having a bad day, or you can't, for whatever reason, they see it. So just remember, there are people who are doing it as a labor of love, or to feed their kids, or both. And when you say those things, it's really when you say nice things, they love it. Like I was just talking
We
to
love
Mary
it,
about
but we
that.
might not believe it.
But yeah, so just be kind, because we're just all people, and you guys are the next game devs too. And someday you'll be reading about your own work. So yeah,
Well,
just try to be nice.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you very much to all our guests for being here. We really appreciate it. Congratulations on the 20th anniversary of this amazing game. And let's give them other hands.